What's up, everybody? It's Quintessential Q coming at you today with a Godfall tier list video. But before we get into that, I hope that everyone had a great Thanksgiving. I hope it was all great, all cool. Hope y'all had some great food. I know I did. And also be sure to leave a like on this video if you fuck with the content, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get updated on any videos I drop on this channel, as well as follow me over on Twitch on twitch.tv/quintessentialq. Link for that will be in the description below. Now, when it comes to a tier list video for the Valor plates, what does it come down to? Because for the most part, we all know all the Valor plates really don't feel too different, right? Like, they don't feel different in their gameplay. Archon Furies feel relatively the same. Some of their passives you really don't notice. So what does it come down to? Like, how are there tiers if they all feel the same? Well, they're all not built the same, right? They ain't built the same. And by that I mean they're when it comes down to augmentation slots, which is the really key thing here, especially when it comes to end game. When it comes to that, they aren't built the same. So when it comes to augmentation slots, a lot of these Valor plates get way more mileage than others, and that just helps push a certain build to a far more vast degree than another Valor plate would be able to push that same type of build. Whether it's they don't have that many green slots or that many red slots or that many blue spots or even that many white spots for the white augmentation spots. It just comes down to the not only how many of a certain color do they have of this one augmentation spot, but where is it placed on each of their individual grids. Because even the augmentation slot grids don't even look the same. They have like different shapes and different like points and nodes pointing to them and all that. So that's really where tiers come into play. And we're just going to go left to right in whatever fucking order that this has. And so we're starting off with Big Boy Aegishorn. Big Boy Aegishorn S. I felt like everyone saw this one coming. If you even scrolled down like Godfall builds videos, you already know that everyone and they mama has an Aegishorn build video. If it's not like a straight out damage build, it's the Immortal Tank Aegishorn build. And that's due to a lot of reasons. Even though I said none of the Archon Furies really feel the same, that doesn't really apply to Aegishorn. Aegishorn's passive is that he has 5%. He takes 5% less damage, and that's just a passive he has all the time. So he already takes 5% less damage compared to every other Valor plate in the game. But when he activates Archon Fury, him and nearby allies take 30% less damage. So on top of the 5% less damage you already taking an additional 30% less damage, you take 35% less damage in Archon Fury. This really pushes the narrative of Archon Fury builds for Aegishorn. Because if you're always in Archon Fury, just a 35% damage mitigation is huge. Like, that's a lot of damage that's not happening to you, right? And even the additional, just the 30% damage mitigation for your teammates is very valuable for them too, to keep them up and alive, because maybe they're playing more glass cannon style builds where they can't afford to take as many hits as you. When it comes down to his augmentation slot grid, he has 3 white augmentation slots, 2 reds, 3 greens, and 1 blue. Pretty much what you would expect from the tank having the most green augmentation slot nodes out of everything else. This provides you extra vitality. The node spots are in relatively good spots too. Even the blue's in a really good spot for certain legendary blue augmentations, just because it's being pointed by 2 greens. You can go straight damage with this because the 3 white nodes are beside the 2 red nodes. So you can go straight out damage. You can go straight tank. He's very versatile in the builds that he can do. Like, he can do the the immortal tank I can't die build, but he can splash in a good hefty chunk of damage in that build just due to where his nodes are placed and all of that. So that's why he's ass. Like, he can pull off a whole bunch of builds, and the builds he excels at, which is like the tank, the kind of like a bruiser build, if you will, because he can dish out a good amount of damage and still just be a phenomenal tank. So it's more of a bully bruiser type build. He can pull that off phenomenally. Moving on, we got another big boy here. We got big boy Armistice, and big boy Armistice, obviously, again, bang, S. And I feel like no one should be too surprised at that either. Big boy Armistice is definitely a S. He's probably the first or second most seen in all the build videos, and that again is for a reason. He has 3 white augmentation slots, 4 red augmentation slots, 1 green, 1 blue. And now he's not nowhere near as efficient of a tank as Aegishorn over there. Aegishorn has the pure damage mitigation in his kit, as well as his grid allows just for more tanky builds. Yeah, you can use the 3 white nodes, 4 green augmentation slots, but so can Aegishorn. So that doesn't even really give you great mileage for a tank. If you wanted to tank, you may as well have just played fucking Aegishorn. Now, where Armistice excels that Aegishorn does not is damage. Damage builds can be pushed to a way greater extent when it comes to Armistice versus Aegishorn. And that's because on the far right of Armistice grid is a cluster of 3 red nodes, right? And kind of like a triangle. Now, there is a point in that cluster where the red augment is being not only pointed at by 2 other red augments, but also it's being pointed at by the blue and the green augment, which you can upgrade them for might so that they're giving might to that red augment. So that means 4 different augments are pointing to that one node. And this is really, and I go out my way to mention that because augments like Foreboding Reach or Carnage scale so lovely off of that node spot. If you don't know, Foreboding Reach reads that 3% damage bonus for every 20 might on adjacent augments. Carnage is the same thing, but instead of rampage damage bonus, it is crit hit damage. So it's good for either one of those 2 spots. It's just a lovely augmentation slot. And then you can still put the other one within the back, in the far right, all the way in the back to just get powered up by the other 2 red augment slots. It's great. He also has a spot that's like one of his white spots that's being pointed at by 3 augments, but it's not as strong as the cluster in the back, but it's still worth pointing out. So he can fit all together. If you were to use every white augmentation slots for red augments and all the red augmentation slots, he can fit 7 red augments. And red augments are of course going to be all your damage augments, because they give you things like rampage damage bonus, critical hit damage, surety, which everyone knows is the weak point when you use your northern technique. You expose weak points and deal an additional 96% weak point damage. You can fit other things like Frostfire that gives you critical hit damage during rampage. All that. And usually you can roll those for weapon technique damage too. So, and rampage damage bonus. So the might augments are obviously just meant to be the damage dealing augments. Green augments are more so your health and tank augments, and blue is kind of like your utility augments, because they do a lot with like shield, like getting your shield charge and Archon Fury charge and stuff like that. So that's why Armistice is just super strong, super good, and he's right along Aegishorn with like being an S tier Valorplate. Moving on, we got Bulwark. Bulwark is not as big boy as the other two, but he still got stuff going for him. So he ain't a S, but he goes into A. He has 3 white augmentation slots, 2 reds, 3 blues, 1 green. So this at first glance, this might look rough because you're like, ooh, he can't fit like a lot of augments. He can't fit a lot of red augments. At most, he can fit 5. Boy, Armistice, big boy Armistice out here is fitting 7. But luckily for Bulwark, one of his white augment slots is put in a really good spot where it's being pointed at by another white augment that you can just put a red augment there. It's pointed at by a red augment, and it's pointed at by a blue augment, which you can just upgrade all the way and take the might roll on. So you can, that's a really good spot for building reach and carnage, similar to Armistice, but Armistice has 2 of these types of spots. Bulwark just got the 1. On top of that, right now, element builds aren't as strong as just full out crit hit damage builds. So the whole forte of going for bleed damage, while there are a lot of a lot of items that do support bleed, I feel like bleed and probably, I think bleed, chill, and like ignited are probably, in my opinion, some of the most like supported ailment types in the game, and they have like really good items and legendary items to go with them as well as legendary weapons that synergize well with those 3. But continuing on to the augmentation slots, it's just he has a really nice grid is what it comes down to. He has a nice grid, but it's not Aegishorn or Armistice nice. It's almost there. If he had another one of these spots that was just very beneficial for a red augment to be boosted, he does, like one of the red augment nodes are being pointed at by 3 different augments, but none of them are being pointed at by a red augment. That red augment slot is being pointed at by a blue, another blue, and a green. So while you can spec all those out for might, at most that's like 300 might. That's like a legendary augment and like not even enough might for a rare augment. Like a rare augment gives 165, so the scaling just doesn't really work that well on that node, unfortunately. So you would just put something that can stand alone, like Frostfire or something that doesn't need to be buffed up by other augments to work, because you really won't get great scaling over there, unfortunately. But other than that, other than its shortcomings, it's still super strong. Like I said, builds a pretty well supported ailment type in this game. So, like I said, he ain't an S, but he's still an A. He can still fit a lot of damage in his build. Pretty much, unless you're Aegishorn, you want to be going for damage, because there's no way you can be as great of a tank as Aegishorn. It's just not going to happen. So, for everybody else that is not named Aegishorn, damage is king for you. And so it really comes down to a battle of who can pull off the better damage builds, and unfortunately for everybody else, Armistice is one of the best ones, and not a lot of people can do what Armistice can do. But, you know, it is what it is. Not all Valor plates were made equal, so it is what it is. Moving on, we got Moebius. Moebius is, it's either B or C for me. It's either B or C for me. I'm gonna put C. I'm gonna put C. I say C because you got 3 white augment slots and 1 red, so that doesn't really give you a lot of potential for damage, honestly. The red augmentation slots, the white augmentation slots are kind of in mess spots. The best one being the 3rd white augmentation slot being pointed at by a red as well as a green and a blue, so it's like okay for scaling. It's all right. It's not the greatest. And that's really the sum up of Moebius. Is just kind of meh. It's an awful lot of meh, honestly, because again you have 4 green augmentation slots, but you don't utilize those nowhere near as well as someone like Aegishorn. So it's kind of eh. And then you only have 1 other red outside of the white augmentation slots that you can potentially put red augments in. You only have 1 other red augment slot that is not even near those white augmentation slots that you would probably slot red augments in. So things like Carnage, things like Twilight Bloom, things like Foreboding Reach, like those just don't do well in that spot at all. You can't even use Twilight Bloom in that spot because Twilight Bloom needs to be adjacent to 2 red augments, and none of the nodes that red node points to are red nodes. They're both green. So very just unfortunate grid design for Moebius, which puts it to a C. Other than that, it's avoid ailment and ailment. I just don't feel like curse is just that strong. If you're going to go for, like, especially since all of the ailments are just damage over time effects. They don't do anything special, which I feel like that should be like reworked. Like maybe void damage, like nerfs, like debuffs the enemy's resistances so you and your team can do more damage to them. That would probably bump up Moebius like a tier or 2, just because it has something that's more useful, that's more beneficial. But as of right now, all the ailments are just damage over time effects, so it's who can pull off a damage over time effect build better than the others. And if we're comparing Moebius to Bulwark, they're not even really close. Like Bulwark can fit a lot more damage in this build, as well as his node spots are just a lot better. So it is what it is for Moebius, unfortunately. Moving on, we got Greyhawk. Greyhawk is another one that goes into the C. I hate him. He's trash. Like, no, he's ass. He's an ass, man. Without a doubt, he's an ass. Let me stop trolling. He's an ass. There's no other tier to put him in other than S. And the reason why is he has 3 white augmentation slots, 3 red augmentation slots, 2 blues, 1 green. And the pattern of his grid allows for 2 different node spots where Foreboding Reach and Carnage can really thrive and do well in. The 3rd white augmentation slot is being pointed at by another white augmentation slot, a red augmentation slot, and a blue augmentation slot that you can just upgrade and spec into Might for. The 2nd red node is being pointed at by 2 other red nodes and a different blue augmentation slot that you can just buff for Might and get as much scaling as possible. So he has 2 different spots that can work for Foreboding Reach and Carnage, that way allowing you to fit both on the build if that is your build, which I feel like those 2 do synergize really well together. And he has, outside of just those 2 spots, again, he has in total 3 reds and 3 whites. So if you use all the white augmentation slots for just red augments, that's 6 potential red augments altogether. Only 1 short of Armistice, who can fit 7. So I think I think Greyhawk is one of like 2 or 3 different Valor plates that can fit 6 red augments. I think there's not a lot of ones that can really fit red augments. Uh, Other than that, the blues are in really good spots to buff up the red augmentation slots if you buff them for might. The green one is unfortunately all the way in the back, so it really can't buff anything but the 2 blue augments, but you don't really care about that spot anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So, and on top of that, Soul Shatter build-up is really good because Soul Shatter doesn't really fall off in-game, where things start to be really tanky and really difficult to deal with. Soul Shatter really doesn't fall off like that. So you can continuously just make a full Soul Shatter crit build and be fine, like be absolutely fine. Nothing really affects you, nothing really bothers you because you scale pretty well in game. The only thing that would probably give you a little bit of trouble, especially depending on what weapon you use, are like the enemies that are holding the shields. But you know, if you have like good shield charge speed or something, you can deal with most of them. Or if you have a secondary weapon like a hammer or something to like breach those enemies, you should be fine. But other than that, has good scaling into in-game because it has built-in Soul Shatter build-up, has great augmentation slots, is able to fit 6 red augments all together, being 1 short of Armistice, with good spots for Carnage and Foreboding Reach, which are probably some of the stronger red augments in the game outside of Surety. Yeah, like there's not, when it comes to damage builds, there's not really too much more you would want out of that. And low key, I would probably put this above Armistice just because Soul Shatter scales a little bit better in game than Breach does. Breach does scale pretty well, but Soul Shatter scales a little bit better. But you could argue either one of these deserve the second spot. It is what it is. I'm gonna put Greyhawk in the second spot right now. I'm gonna try to order this as best I can. So, Aegishorn right here, just because super tank, but like even in crazy high end game, he really can't die. Maybe if you can play these at a super high level where you don't get hit, where you parry everything, both of these would be above him just because they can fit way more damage than Aegishorn. But as of right now, I'm gonna put him right there. Ooh, we're moving on to Hinterclaw. Hinterclaw is an interesting one. Hinterclaw, if you build Hinterclaw incorrectly, which I feel unfortunately a lot of people do, if you build Hinterclaw incorrectly, he's down here. He is the worst Valor plate if you don't build him correctly. If you build him correctly, he's up here. And why do I say that? Why I say that if he's not built correctly, he's a D tier, or if he's built optimally, he's an S tier. Like, how can a Valor plate be like that? Like, how can a build affect a Valor plate that much if all the Valor plates play the same? And that's due to how unique Hinterclaw's like augment grid is. And when I say that, Hinterclaw, unlike all the other Valor plates in the game, only has 7 augmentation slots. Every other Valor plate in the game has 9. And that's 2 whole augmentation slots. And you might say, well, that's not a big deal. That's just 2 augmentation slots. No. Having 2 augmentation slots gone is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. And he doesn't even get more power usage for it. He has 7 augmentation slots, and he still has the limitation of only being able to have 100 augmentation power usage, just like everybody else. So he doesn't get more power usage for missing 2 augments. But what his grid excels at is that his grid is in a hexagon pattern. So at every corner of the hexagon is a colored augment. So there's 2 reds, 2 blues, and 2 greens on the outsides of the hexagon. each of those nodes points to the 7th node, which is in the middle of the hexagon. So basically every other augment points to this middle spot, and vice versa. The middle spot points to each one of the 6 corners. But what I see a lot of builds do is waste this middle spot on Sacred Flame. And I'll get more in depth on why it's not good to do that, but just TLDR, if you put Sacred Flame right here in this middle slot compared to putting Rampage or Foreboding Reach, you're actually missing out on damage. Yes, Sacred Flame does give you 70% might to every augment it points to, which is why a lot of people fall for that trap. But the thing is, the middle augment slot shouldn't be the support slot, or as I'm gonna call it, it shouldn't be the support slot. It should be the star of the show. It is in the middle to be, everything should be buffing this middle augmentation slot, not vice versa. Not the middle augmentation slot trying to help out the 6 corners. Everything should be buffing the mid spot. On top of that, it's really good, like his grid's really good because it also allows for a secondary spot for Carnage or Foreboding Reach, depending on which one you put in the middle. You can put one of the other ones on the outside the node corner, and it's being pointed at by the red that you put in the middle, and by another either green or blue that you will just upgrade for might. So super strong, super good. The Archon Fury is just kind of meh, because I mean, in Archon Fury you gain 30% crit hit chance, which is good, and 15% critical hit damage whenever you defeat an enemy, stacking up to, if you kill 10 enemies, max 150 damage, which is cool. But you probably, depending on where you're at, like in towers or how many mobs are available, you probably won't always get this max 150% before Archon Fury just goes away. And on top of that, your just standard passive is 5% crit chance, which 5% isn't that strong to me. But if you, like, I feel like it should at least be 10%. I feel like giving me an extra 5 won't hurt, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. But if you build him optimally, he easily competes with Armistice, and he competes with all these boys in damage, even though he can't fit nowhere near as many red augments as any one of these. Just because of how his grid works, he easily competes in damage with all these. Just because like that middle augment slot is being pointed at by 6 different augments, he easily keeps up with damage with Armistice, with Greyhawk, and with he outscales Aegishorn that's built for full damage. So, and keeps up with these two. Like, these two only slightly out damages Hinterclaw, and that just might be due to me not having like everything min-maxed that I can for the builds. Like, maybe if everything's min-maxed for everybody, like Hinterclaw could potentially just out damage these two, just because of how his grid's set up. So that's why Hinterclaw. But again, if he's not built optimally, he's down here because he's missing 2 augmentation slots compared to everybody else. He has nowhere near the potential to fit as many red augments, and it's just all bad. But if he's built optimally, bang, up here. And that's really what the tier list is supposed to focus on, if the build's built optimally. So we're going to take him at his best instead of at his worst and put him up here. Now, where we have Mesa. Mesa, hey. And I think Mesa is above Bulwark. Get to the back. Bulwark really didn't want to be back there, bro. But Mesa is an A. Now, why is Mesa an A? Mesa can fit 6 red augments because she has 3 white augments, 3 red augments, 2 green augments, and 1 blue augment. Obviously, you can just use all 3 of the white augments for red augments, which is probably beneficial, especially for Mesa. And she also has good node spots for Foreboding Reach and Carnage. She has one really good spot for Foreboding Reach or Carnage, and the other spot's just kind of okay. Just like your standard, oh, you can have Carnage being pointed at by 2 red augments and get really buffed up. So it's just a really good spot. Unlike Bulwark, who really doesn't have as many good spots, and he only has 5 augments compared to 6. That's a little bit more might go into Mesa. So Mesa just ever so slightly just kind of out damages Bulwark over here. Bulwark just gets slightly outdone. Mesa's grid is just very well made, very good. It supports things like Twilight Bloom, Carnage, Foreboding Reach. It supports all those. It can easily build for whatever those red augments that needs to be beside 2 other red augments, or the ones that scale off how much might is being directed towards that augment. Now. Illumina. Garbage. Garbage, and it hurts because if this thing had a better grid, it could have easily been up here. Or at the very least, it could have been right here. But it could have been up here. It could have been in either one of these, but nah, they did Illumina dirty with their grid, so she goes all the way down here. And how did they do Illumina dirty? What is so bad about Illumina's grid that makes her way down here? Well, I'm glad you asked. In her grid, she has 2 reds, 3 whites, 2 greens, 2 blues. And on paper, you're like, but wait, that's potential 4 red augments. 5 red augments, excuse me. That's potential for 5 red augments. If she has 3 whites that she could just all make red, and 2 actual red augments, that's 5 red augments altogether. How is she bad? Bulwark has 5. Like, why is she not up here? That's because of the pattern of her grid. The 2 red augments only point to the 1 red augment all the way on the left only points to a green augment, and the 1 red augment all the way to the right only points to a blue augment with no other augments pointing to them. That means they're terrible spots for Foreboding Reach or Carnage, as well as Twilight Bloom, who needs to be beside 2 adjacent red augments for it. Furthermore, the white spots that Illumina has are also terrible for these augments. So the only red augments that do great for Illumina are augments that can stand alone, and most of the good, except for Surety, because Surety can stand alone, right? It doesn't need anything else to buff it. It's just is what it is. But most of the other augments don't work like that. Twilight Bloom, Carnage, Foreboding Reach, they don't work that way. They require, either in Carnage and Foreboding Reach's case, to be pointed at by augments that's going to give them might to really buff up, or they need to be beside 2 red augments, like in Twilight Bloom's case. And it just doesn't really support that at all. There's literally no way to have 3 red augments be beside each other, so they can't really buff each other for might, or they can't be just adjacent to each other to get Twilight Bloom passive. So it's just bad. And the weak point damage that Illumina has in her kit for Archon and Archon Fury, it just doesn't matter. 15% weak point damage isn't enough for such a bad grid. And then during Archon Fury, you have Unleash a Shockwave every 1 second that deals 1 physical damage and reveals enemy weak points. Weak point damage is 40% plus 40% plus 40% weak point damage whenever you perform a death blow. So you can potentially get 80% weak point damage if you continuously do death blows. But all that still don't matter. Still don't matter. It's not enough. Like, she really just needs, I feel like they just, for Illumina to really do well, I feel like they really just need to change her grid around. Like, make it so that these red augments are pointing to some of the white nodes, like up here at the top or up here at the bottom. Something. Like, it's rough for Illumina and her grid, man. Yeah, her grid is garbage. The worst. Actually, the worst grid in the fucking game. Actually, the worst. Moving on. We have Phoenix. Phoenix is where would I put Phoenix? Phoenix could potentially be here because it suffers from a lot of things that Moebius does suffer from. Phoenix could potentially be right here, but where am I gonna put Phoenix? It's so hard to place Phoenix just because, again, Ailment's just not that strong, so I can't really even put that in high regard for it. Like, I can't even be like, well, it got Ailment going for it. It can do that. That's something, right? No, it's not really anything as of right now, and it has a lot of the same problems that Moebius has. So if I'm gonna put Moebius at C for having those issues, I'm gonna put Phoenix at C for having the same issues. I'm gonna put Phoenix above Moebius just because Phoenix looks cooler though. Because both of them have the exact same problems, and so they're basically the exact same. Phoenix has 3 white augments, 1 red augment, 2 blue augments, and 3 green augments. The white augments are all together. They do not point to the red node. The red node only points to 2 blue nodes. So, terrible spot for Foreboding Reach or Twilight Bloom. The best spot for Foreboding Reach or Twilight Bloom is only being pointed at by another white augment, which of course you would just put a red there, and a blue and a green, which while you can spec them for might, both of those together would probably be only on par with it, having it beside another legendary augment, if not slightly better. So, not really worth at the end of the day. A lot of other Valorplates just have better node designs than this. So, unfortunately for Phoenix, it's just here. Just pure crit hit damage build or crit hit ignited build or crit ignited build will probably be the best. Doesn't really make great use of Foreboding Reach or Carnage like every other else can do okay with Twilight Bloom, but yeah, that's about it. Really can't get much mileage out of a pure damage build, especially not compared to Mesa or Bulwark, and nowhere near as great as these boys up here. So unfortunately for Phoenix, because I think Phoenix is a dope looking Valorplate, it just gets the short end of the stick in the fact that you can't really fit as much damage. Its node build is just bad. Nowhere near as bad as Lumina's. Not down here, but Lumina's is garbage. At least these two are workable. Like, you can do a little something. You can't do much, but you can do a little something. You can't do shit with this. Can't do jack shit with this. Going on into Silvermane, the Valorplate you start off with. The beginning Valorplate. I think I am also going to put this at C. But this to be expected, right? It's the starting one. Really shouldn't be that great. It's kind of meh. Again, a lot of the same problems. Again, I'm gonna put. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm gonna put Silvermane right there because again, he looks cooler. Not a lot going for it. 3 whites, 2 reds. So you could have potentially 5 red augments altogether compared to these two's 4, but unfortunately it doesn't really have like the best spots for Carnage or Twilight Bloom. Carnage or Foreboding Reach. It can make use of Twilight Bloom though, because Twilight Bloom only needs to be beside 2 red augments. It does not scale with the might that's being directed towards it. So it does have that going for it, but none of the nodes are just really good. At most, it's only being each red node is only being pointed at by 2 other reds, and the one red and one of the red nodes way on the right is being pointed at by 3 different augments, but it's a blue, another blue, and a green. So altogether, that would probably give you that would barely give you enough scaling for slightly over a legendary augment. Like a legendary augment plus like a rare augment would outscale these 3 augments pointing to that one red. So very unfortunate grid pattern. If the red augment all the way on the right was being pointed at by like another red augment, or like 2 red if they gave it an extra red augment and take out one of the greens or one of the blues, so that this red augment was being buffed by 2 red augments and like whatever green or blue augment that they want to put right there, it would be a lot better. But unfortunate for it, it's not. So very. And then it's Archon and Archon Fury, just 10% weapon technique charge speed, shield charge speed, and polarity attack charge speed. Meh. During Archon Fury, 300% weapon technique charge speed, shield charge speed, and polarity attack charge speed, plus 30% damage whenever you defeat an enemy with a weapon technique, shield ability, or polarity attack. It's just all around meh. If the passive was it gained like weapon technique damage, shield damage, and polarity damage, because again, damage, unless you're Aegishorn, damage is king. So maybe if it got like a 10 or 20% boost in that, it could just like squeeze up into the B tier. But unfortunately for it, no. No, it doesn't. 2 Valor plates left, and there is no B tier. So where do these 2 fall in line? Do they fall in the B tier? And most likely, y'all can guess that at least one of them does. Typhoon. Does Typhoon fall in this tier? Not really. Not really. Has a lot of the same problems that everybody has here. Everyone has here. Only max of 4 augmentation slots. Just very lackluster. The red node doesn't point to any other red nodes. The 3 white nodes that you can use for reds are meh. The best spot for Foreboding Reach or Carnage can only be buffed by 1 red augment, and then it has to be buffed by a blue augment and a green augment, so it's just very meh. Same song and dance that everybody else in C tier has. So and plus it's shock ailment. Ailment's kind of meh, so it is what it is. However, Vertigo is in a slightly better spot, so it goes into B, the standalone B. And why is it the standalone B? What makes it? It only has 4 augmentation slots, like the boys and girls down here. So what makes it different? And simply put, it's simply where they place her augments. The red augment is right beside the white augmentation slots. So the red augment, so the best spot for foreboding reach or carnage is actually used to pretty much full efficiency, because the third white augmentation slot is being pointed at by another white augmentation slot, a red augmentation slot, and a blue augmentation slot that you will scale for might. The other white augmentation slots, the other two white augmentation slots are right beside each other, so they're also good for Twilight Bloom in that regard. If you want to do that as well, it makes use of all the other slots as well as the better than these people over here, but not as well as these people up here. So it's a little bit in a tier of its own because it doesn't suffer from the unfortunate like grid effect of just having the red augment all the way on the other side of the grid not next to anything valuable, or just having weird designs for it. It is an ailment one. It's the shock ailment Valorplate, so there's that. Ailment's just kind of meh, but it is what it is. It does have everything else in the rights going for it, though. Compared to everything else, it's just everything else is garbage. But that'll be the end of that. That's pretty much where, and I think everything's pretty ordered. C tier really doesn't matter. They're all, you can flop these out. It pretty much comes down to aesthetic at this point. This is where you put each one of these, because they all suffer from the exact same problems. But that'll be the end of that. Again, you can just follow me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/quintessentialq. Also like and subscribe for all of that. This video's gone way too long. But I had to thoroughly explain everything, so it is what it is. But I'll catch y'all on the next one. Deuces.